Hey lovelies, Madam Sophy here again to do a review. Today I'm going to be looking at possible dupes for the Morphe 35B palette. As you guys know, Morphe no longer, well, I don't know if they're not going to produce this palette anymore, but for the past few weeks I've been on their website and the Morphe 35B palette is no longer in stock. This palette, I don't know if they're not going to sell it anymore, but this palette is no longer in stock on the Morphe website. I don't know if they're probably trying to reinvent the colors, but I'm just here to do a review on some other eyeshadow palettes you could use apart from the Morphe 35B palette. Now the palettes I'm about to show you, they're not exactly the same. Well, apart from one, they may not be very similar, but I will be reviewing one palette that's pretty much similar to this palette right here. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be reviewing with you guys today. If you want to get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette, there are other options out there that you could use. My first option, I believe, would be the Cara Professional Makeup Palette, or Cara Beauty or Cara Cosmetics palette. And this is in the color, this is in ES2. So the Cara ES2 eyeshadow palette would be a great option if you cannot get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette. Now I'm going to put these palettes side by side so you could see the similarities. Okay, so this is the Morphe 35B palette and this is the Cara Cosmetics palette. Okay, Morphe is on top, the Cara palette is at the bottom. And as you guys can see, there are a lot of similarities in this palette. So this is the Cara palette and this is the Morphe 35B palette. Okay, so this is how it's looking, and I don't know if you guys can see the similarities. Now, I have not swatched these palettes side by side with each other, so I cannot tell you whether the Morphe 35B is more pigmented than the Cara Cosmetics ES2 palette. The pigmentation in the Morphe 35B palette is very much there, and also in the Cara Cosmetics palette. Both palettes have pigmented eyeshadows, but the only thing that I realized from using the Morphe 35B palette is some pigments would have, some eyeshadow colors would have more pigment than others, and I would say that this is the very same case for the Cara Cosmetics ES2 palette. It's the same thing. Some of the colors are more pigmented than others, and I think that this is something you would expect with almost any eyeshadow palette, whether it is a higher end eyeshadow palette or a lower end eyeshadow palette. That is something you would experience. Some colors would be more pigmented than others, and some would be less pigmented than others. So this would be a really good option for you if you're looking for a Morphe 35B palette and you cannot get your hands on it. This is the Cara Cosmetics ES2 palette. I purchased this palette on iCateHouse.com and I believe I paid about $12 to $15 for this palette. Okay, so this is a really good bargain if you're really looking to get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette. Another palette I would recommend that you could get your hands on, now that palette I'm going to talk about is not the very same palette. Okay, it's not the same palette, but you do have very bright colors in this palette. You would not, the shade variation in each color is completely different, but my next recommendation would be the Stacey Marie Carnival palette. This would be my other recommendation. With the Stacey Marie palette, you have 24 eyeshadow colors and you have 2 highlighters in this palette, and I would say that you get better shade variation. So for example, in the Morphe 35B palette, you have a few shades of pinks, a few shades of purple, a few shades of blues, a few shades of yellows that you could work with. You also have 1 or 2 shimmers here and there. But the Morphe 35B palette does not have a wide variety of shimmers. So the difference between these two palettes, although you'd be able to get similar colors in this palette when compared to the Morphe 35B palette, you would be able to get shimmers in this palette. This would be another option if you're looking for a bright eyeshadow palette and you cannot get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette. Another recommendation I would suggest would be the Makeup Revolution Pro Matte Mischiefs eyeshadow palette. You do not get 35 eyeshadow colors in this palette, but this palette would be a really good beginner palette if you're looking for bright colors to work with. Again, in this palette you do not have a variation of the variation of colors is not as large as what you would get in the Morphe 35B palette. In this palette you have approximately 21 colors in this palette. You do not have 35 colors though, but this would be another option for you if you're looking for a bright palette to work with. The Makeup Revolution Pro eyeshadow palette, this palette right here costs less than $20. I would say this palette would be in the $13 range to $16 range, and I'm going to leave information on where you'll be able to purchase this eyeshadow palette in the description section of this video. If you cannot get your hands, or if you're in the predicament where you cannot get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette, these are other options that are available for you to basically get similar shades as you would get in if you were to purchase the Morphe 35B palette. Again, I recommended the Cara Cosmetics ES2 palette, and this palette is not exactly, but it is very similar. The shade variation in the Cara Beauty or the Cara Cosmetics ES2 palette is very similar to the amount of, well, to the eyeshadow shades you'll be able to get in the Morphe 35B palette. In addition to that, the Cara Cosmetics ES2 eyeshadow palette also have 35 colors. So just wanted to point that out to you. In addition to that, the other recommendation I made, which is the most expensive eyeshadow palette in my recommendations, is the Cara Beauty BPERFECT Carnival palette. This palette not only have a variety of brights, you do get a variety of gold tone colors, silver tone colors, shimmer colors, metallic colors, and you also do get the option of 2 highlighters in this palette. Okay, this palette has 24 colors, 24 eyeshadow colors, and in addition to that you get 2 highlighters with that. Okay, and last but not least, one of the other cheaper options for you would be the Makeup Revolution Pro Matte Mischiefs eyeshadow palette. In this palette you have 21 colors. The variation in each color would not be as much as what you would receive if you were to get the Morphe 35B palette, but this is what this palette looks like. It's also a cheaper option for you, and this is what it looks like. The colors are very pigmented. This is actually the palette I used to get this look I have on right now, but the colors are very much on the pigmented side. This is an all matte eyeshadow palette compared to the STACEY Marie Carnival palette. So if you like something that's very matte or more on the matte side, this would be a really good palette for you to get. Okay, so these are my recommendations. If you cannot get your hands on the Morphe 35B palette, these are the other options that are available to you. If you know of any other options that are available, please let me know in the comment section. Let me know what other recommendations or what other palettes that are out there that you would recommend instead of the Morphe 35B palette. I do not know if the Morphe brand is going to come out with another version of the 35B palette, but I know for a fact that as of now this palette is not in stock on their website. Okay, so just wanted to point that out to you guys. These are other options for the Morphe 35B palette. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Thank you for the constant support. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I welcome you, and I hope that you did have a good time watching my video and listening to what I have to say in regards to this the content in this video. Okay guys, so that's it for today. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that you have a progressive day. I hope that everything that you have planned for the day turns out to be great, and I hope that you have a progressive and successful day. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to be Sophie. Bye.